Your story is an awesome one, and I want to give you a chance to dive into it.
My brothers and I found some mattresses, some new beds for the vendor, and sold two of them out of the back of a truck in a gas station. We were like, oh, that was easy. Let's try doing that again. So we put our $500 to test and we kept putting it back into the company and kept growing. And here we are 13 years later. A lot of challenges there, but we're just grinding.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. One of the things I love most about getting to talk to people in this industry, and specifically the independent retailers out there, is just the entrepreneurial spirit of those individuals. They're a lot of upstarts and people that really that they put their heart and soul into these businesses, these retail businesses, and it is them. It becomes who they are, kind of a part of their identity, part of their communities, of course. And it sounds very cheesy and cliche, but it's just cool to get to know those people behind the businesses. And that's what I recently had the opportunity to do with Alonzo Antonucci, the owner of the Boseman, Montana-based Bobcat Home Furnishings Company. And Antonucci, Alonzo, he started that business in 2008 and has seen it grow despite facing some serious challenges. I mean, starting right in the middle of the first recession back in 08, 09, and more recently moving into a space that's nearly 10 times the size of his original store, as he was going through and the country was going through a pandemic. So cool to see how he took what was just an idea. And when we talk about entrepreneurs and cliches and things, you think about the idea on the back of a napkin, and come to learn that's exactly how Alonzo basically came up with the idea for Bobcat and the name for his company, and worked it into something. He had a little bit of an art background and worked it right into the business that he's got today. So I mean, true business upstart kind of guy that pours everything he is into his business, and it shows. I mean, he's turned it into something that's incredibly successful in the community, and just an incredible story of strength in what he does and leaning on resources available to him to make the most of his business. So just real excited to have had Alonzo on and talk to him, learn more about him, and see what he and the Bobcat family are doing out there in Boseman. So let's just go ahead and dive into this podcast with Alonzo Antonucci of Bobcat Home Furnishings Company. All right, we're back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and real excited. I said a couple weeks ago I had a member on from Montana, and he was the first member that I ever, first person I ever spoke to from Montana. Now, a couple weeks later, I'm back to the big state out there, and excited to have on Alonzo Antonucci, owner of Bobcat Home Furnishings Company. So, Alonzo, you're not the first Montanan I've ever. Is that right? Is it Montanan?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. Yeah.
So not the first Montanan.
There's true local Montanans, and then there's the people that move here. And within a month, they call themselves Montanans, and we don't really give them that right to call themselves that yet.
Gotcha. Well, excited to have you on. Coming from, we were in Cut Bank last time around. Now we're down in Boseman. So
Cut Bank, wow, that's cold.
Yeah. So crazy to find out. I think anyone thinks of Montana a massive state, but I did the math on the distance between Cut Bank and Boseman, and it's actually the same distance as if I were to drive from Philly. I'm in Philly. If I drove out to Pittsburgh, which is nuts to me. So if you just turn the state side, if you turn Pennsylvania sideways, it's as tall as Montana.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's a big state for sure.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate you joining. We've got a lot to dive into today. I mean, your story is an awesome one, and I want to give you a chance to dive into it because I did some digging on your website. You guys have an awesome About Us page that really dives into each of your team members. But I want to start, give us the elevator pitch on Bobcat and kind of who you guys are.
Yeah. As the owner of Bobcat Home Furnishing Company, I started my company 13 years ago. My brothers and I had found some mattresses, some new beds for the vendor, and sold two of them out of the back of a truck in a gas station.
Wow.
And we were like, oh, that was easy. Let's try doing that again. So we put our $500 to test, and we kept putting it back into the company and kept growing. And here we are 13 years later. We decided to move into what is currently a 32,000 square foot store, coming from 4,000 square feet for the last 8 years. And that all happened during COVID.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
they
And
shut down our state and our country and called us non essential business as we are trying to establish ourselves in our new location. So um, we survived somehow, not knowing if we would ever open, honestly, because we didn't know, the world didn't know what was going to happen. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to have to go out of business, relocate to Oklahoma,
wow.
something crazy that I could afford with no money, right? I mean, no one had any money
Yeah.
when you're out of business. Um, Being a sole proprietor, we weren't given money, but my employees were given money, and letting them go. So a lot of challenges there, but here we are, and we're just grinding
No,
and
that's all. And
having
and
fun.
I want to get into some of that, but before we do that, I know you mentioned the selling out of a bag. What is it that got you? What bit the retail bug for you?
Oh man, I didn't know what direction I was going to go. Honestly, I was a college student and I was literally selling phones in my class. Sorry, selling mattresses on via text message on my phone. Heavily distracted, and I would honestly skip school to go make some money. Um, so it took a while before I wanted to make that leap of faith. Probably about 4 years before I wanted a storefront because I didn't want to take out any loans. And so I was just reinvesting back in myself and my company.
Sure. And one of the cool things I found on your website, it almost feels like the name Bobcat came before the actual business itself. Is that how true of a story is that you drew the logo?
Yeah, is that on our
It
webpage?
is. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. That you
yeah.
drew it while you were
I,
sitting in a class.
I have an art background, and
Yeah.
I was literally sitting in a psychology class, and I had a napkin from a muffin I was eating, you know, after lunch, and so I drew up a logo. About a year later, I was able to use that logo because I didn't know how to convert that into a vector file or anything
Sure.
else like that. My background wasn't so much in graphic design as it was pen and ink and mixed medium, so I didn't know the computer side. And so I had a good friend that ran a website company and still does, and is really good with logos. So he converted it into a file, and it is what it is today. So.
That's pretty cool. And talk about, you mentioned that you started, just out of the back of a truck, and what was it, when did you decide that you were ready to make that leap into a storefront?
Like I said, 4 years. There was a opening a little bit closer to the main road, literally about 150 yards from where I was at, in a warehouse that I was making appointments with. I actually didn't even know that business model even existed. I thought I created it, but come to find out, there's a lot of competition out in the United States that has similar business models. I just didn't know,
Yeah.
because it was right in the economic downturn there, in 2008, 2009.
Yep.
As I was trying to grow, there's furniture and mattress stores going out of business, and I'm growing through it.
That's
Um,
crazy.
but like I said, I didn't even know that business model existed. It just got to the point I'm like, I think I can do better if people could come in my door, a little bit easier. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? It was just a financial leap of faith and
Sure.
to get closer to the public's eyes. So
Yeah. And you mentioned you spent about 8 years in, a store that was about 4,000 square feet. Is that right?
yeah, just a little shy of it, but close enough with
S-
warehouse space.
What, what did obviously now you're almost in a store that's eight, 10 times the size of that. What in the time that you spent in that smaller location, what did you learn about the business and kind of, learn about what you got yourself into?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was always a roller coaster. I mean, I'm up against, private equity companies. I mean, really at the end of the day, big box is what wins. Big money. I never had that, still don't have that. It's been just a consistent grind on it. But it's fine. So just getting the word of mouth. I learned that I could do it. I stuck around because of my customer base. I know it sounds cheesy, but honestly, what's going to happen to my customer if they have a problem with their product, mattress or furniture, and what are they going to do? You know, they're kind of stuck. So I wanted to, in life, all you have is really your name and your family. And I didn't want to be that fly by night or just disappear or be slandered, in the public, because this is where I lived, so it was sticking really around for my customer.
No, I love that because that's a lot of what we hear, I think, from nationwide members is that you guys are so ingrained in your communities. And I mean, big box, it's the like nameless faces that you see as you walk through those stores. Whereas with an independent and a small business owner and like you guys, a self-made, company, self-made business that they're your neighbors. So like I understand and hear so much that type of story. It's kind of cool to see how much the business and what you do, you care about it, but it means more to the people that you're surrounded by.
Hmm. Absolutely.
No, so expansion. I mean, you recently you spent 8 years there, and then what led to I know you guys started as Bobcat Mattress, and now your home furnishings, obviously adding a few more product lines and things like that, and categories to the store. What led to that?
Honestly, there was a store called Slumberland. It was a franchise store that was always a mile down the road from me. I would get their customers. I'm sure at some level they got mine. Probably a lot less than I got of theirs when they were looking for a mattress. In that store, I don't think they went out of business, but I think there was a communication issue with the landlord and their business that had been established here for 20 years in this location. And when that opened up, I'd always said to myself, like, man, I love that location. It's like prime location, right? Our our town is growing this direction, right? So I mean, it just puts it in a better location. And so they started to go out of business or move or relocate or whatever they were going to do out of town. And that opportunity came available for 2 years, that there was a vacant building that I'm currently in right now.
Wow.
And I didn't have a pot to piss in, honestly. Like, I had to get creative. I tried for 2 years to figure out how to get in here, and I kept just beating my head against the wall. And then at one point, we came to an agreement actually with the owner of the building to owner finance. Literally 2 days later, I'm in competing offers though with millionaire investors,
Wow.
commercial investors, and all of a sudden I lost out. Like 2 years of a vacant building, all of a sudden I'm losing, and now I have to rent currently from them.
Gotcha.
Um, so it's really interesting on how it all worked out, and here we are. And I'm stoked, but obviously COVID's had its impacts.
Absolutely. Well, the interesting thing there is that, you mentioned growing your business during a time when, the last kind of big economic like uh, craziness occurred back in 08, 09. Did you learn anything from that you could have brought forward into, I know it's slightly different situations, but, anything you could have learned from that applied to what you were doing over the past year?
Yeah, I think it's taken baby steps. Unfortunately, like the cost difference from where I was to where I am now is just so significantly different. Whereas before, I always took it like every month or every year, I would kind of get bigger. I wouldn't grow until I could expand through a wall or do something. So I was a little bit more measured. Like, here's my goal. Let's try to get there. But I ended up boxing myself in for like 6 years. Honestly, I had maxed out what I could do, but I knew I could do a ton more. I just needed space. And that was a huge driving point for me. And as you grow your family or you grow your staff, they become family too, and then you get a little bit more invested in them, and you want to create possibly a career for them so that they could have a family and afford to live here. And Bozeman's not a cheap place to live. So I was kind of driven by taking care of my staff as much as myself, honestly. That I had to give them a future or lose them,
Interesting. I know
honestly.
crazy way to look at it, because obviously, thinking about it from this side, the nationwide side, there's all the product growth, obviously, but then for the individual businesses, you're talking about, I know your business grew as well a lot during this expansion and moving into a new place. I mean, start on the people side. What when you go from that almost 4,000 square foot space to what is it now, like
32.
32,000? I
Yep.
mean, obviously you need more manpower. So what's it like trying to
I know.
find people to come in and help you grow into that space?
It's really interesting. I was able to carry over my existing staff that I had, which was about 3 to 5 given on the month, right? Heck, I'll still do my own deliveries sometimes. I actually enjoy it. Lately I've been using the forklift. Like, I'm like, man, I want this job. This is piece of cake. This is fun.
Someone
You
else
know,
run. I just want to drive this thing around in the
yeah, you
back.
guys figured it out. You know, so I brought them with me, and that they were part of the step. I kept them with me the whole time of conversation and talking future. And a lot of confidence in them that they were willing to make the move with me too, because they could have done something else, obviously. But we had to hire about 10 to 12 more people during COVID, like
Wow.
the March through the May. And ironically, I was able to do it without a problem. And I ended up landing amazing people because they were in limbo with what they were doing in their lives too. And they took a leap of faith with me as well. So,
So now what kind of, I'm assuming you obviously you had sales associate. Did you expand into other areas of retail business as you were looking to bring in people?
oh, 100%. Yeah. So I had a good friend that was he'd been in the flooring industry for 25 years, very experienced in that world, in installation and repping and all sorts of cool stuff. So he was willing to make a change as well from where he was at with a big franchise store, and wanted to have kind of his own say in something. So I brought him along with me, and we started flooring. I started the flooring division in my store. Um, when we had been talking, I'm like, well, nothing makes more sense than appliances when you have flooring. I mean, a lot of people replace the two at the same time, or they go into a new construction project. And back in the day, I actually used to work for Sears doing deliveries and stuff like that. And so appliances didn't really scare me when it came to it. Flooring made me nervous because I tried to leave the construction background
Yeah.
and leave that for someone else. And I'm like, I have to have someone knows what the freak they're doing there, because that one worries me. Appliances, I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then we had done furniture for 10 years, but I was quite limited what I could put on my floor because I didn't have much floor
Right.
space, and I had 60 to 70 mattresses. So they kind of came and gone, but we would have hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales a year by just trusting us to work on a big giant screen, really, or
Sure.
people emailing us because they're shopping online anyways. They might as well buy it through someone that can service them.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, that's what we did. So those are the new lines that we expanded into.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, cool. How crazy, because you're talking about expand. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You're expanding during a pandemic, like staff and your product line. So at a time where supply chains were all sorts of out of whack. They still are. Let's be honest. I
Yes,
mean,
they are.
what was it like trying to get that product, into your store as you're looking to add these to this massive new
But
location?
it's my constant everyday battle. Like, I'm still trying to grow into my store,
Yeah.
honestly, because the product that you can get is so inconsistent. Um, so you kind of have to, if you are not creative, you will die right now in the industry, unless you've just got money sitting in the bank. I mean, that's what it comes down to, because it's that much of a challenge. You take a company like Ashley Furniture. I used to get pissed off when it would take more than 14 days to get someone's couch, right?
Yep.
Right now, I'm happy to possibly get it in 14 weeks.
Right.
You know, it's really a hard thing to tell a customer that your product ain't coming soon.
What are those conversations like? Like, how do you are customers understanding because of the time, or is it still they're antsy to get their
I
hands
think
on
people
things?
are getting a lot better. We have to relay the information we're given, right? and you feel like we're in the dark. Um, I've always treated my company as like the Jimmy Johns of the industry. Like, if I've got it in stock, I'm going to get it to you today. And chances are it'll be a free delivery for you. You know, kind of unheard of, right? So it's been a really humbling experience to not be able to satisfy my customers as quick as we used to. Um, so we've just had to get really good at talking to the customer and give them big windows. It could be here in a week. It could be here in 24 weeks. It's out of my control. And Montana is an island, so it's really hard to get product anyways
Right.
for
No, that's
shipping routes.
Yeah, that's true and crazy to think about. But I know, we're obviously keeping an eye on things and hope to see an end to this crazy crunch. I know, yeah, pandemic aside, there's been lumber shortages, and on the appliance side, parts have been hard to come by. So I know it's been crazy. But if if you could think to a time somewhere in the future where this is not an issue, what's the pipe dream for what the inside of Bobcat Home Furnishing Company looks like? What kind of business are you doing, and how are things humming along?
Um, man, I would, even my mattress selection isn't what I want it to be. It kind of infuriates me there. Flooring is cooking. We have pretty much the product lines that we want there. Appliances, I won't get into too much of that, but I just need that to get it better established right now, as much as even my competitors to a level, right? And that's is what it is. Furniture, I'm trying to figure out my 80/20. You know, haven't been able to get that dialed in because there's inconsistent. I can't order container loads of furniture, for instance, and hope and pray that you're going to sell it. We're not in a volume market, right? If you have a big franchise store, you could spread that out through your other franchise store. So it's a challenging place to be as an independent, right? Um, but I do look towards an expansion here of about 11,000 square feet, honestly, in the next hopefully year or two.
Wow.
I won't exactly say what's going to go in there, so I don't give
Sure.
anyone any ideas. But it's going to be pretty awesome if I can make it work.
Well, so the cool thing I know, in speaking to your contact here at Nationwide, and he recently shared your story with us and everything that, what this past year has been like, and growing and expanding into appliances and all these other categories, and just the hard work that's gone into it. And I know, thinking about, not only did your footprint grow from a store standpoint, but I know business is really booming for you. I think he said you had a goal you're pushing nearly like 5 times the amount of business you had been doing in just a couple of years. Which is
Oh yeah, if honestly, if everything would have panned out, if this COVID crap did not happen, okay, we would have easily hit our financial goal we wanted to hit, if not more.
wow.
Without a doubt. So everything I've been running, it feels like halves, 50% of this. I can only get 50% of what I'm trying to order. I'm only doing 50% of the sales. I mean, kind of the list goes on of what we could be doing. So I have no doubt in my mind we could just absolutely kill it in our community. And with that too, I'm going to employ more, you know? Um, so the employee shortage in our community is outrageous. I've been quite blessed to be able to pick people up off the street,
Right.
even. But there's definitely those challenges there. But I plan on adding another 5 to 10 people if I can get close to my goal, and obviously exceed that. I'm going to need more people.
Yeah.
So
You think back to those early days and selling out of a truck. Did you ever envision Bobcat being what it is today?
not a clue, man. Like, it was literally survival. I ended up getting married that same year. I was taking 21 credits. I had a research project in Africa. I was out of my freaking mind. Um, and sleep has always been key to me. So, like, if I didn't get any sleep, I couldn't have achieved anything. So I'm kind of driven that way. That I think it sounds cheesy again, but like, if people don't sleep well, there's more problems in the world. Like, if people just slept well, I think we can get rid of half the problems we got.
I
I
love
do a
that
lot worse
saying.
when I'm grouchy and I'm hungry, right?
Don't we
So
all?
yeah.
No, that's so true. But I mean, you think about that, and obviously it is what it is today. So what do you attribute that success to, and growing as you have, despite going through these two incredibly uncertain times with the recession of 08, 09, and now with this pandemic of the past year?
I would give a lot of credit to my staff, a couple of certain individuals. I'll name them on air: Michael, Izzy, Jared. Jared's in Phoenix right now. Hopefully, be back in a year. Girlfriend pulled him away for a little bit, but he'll be back. And then, honestly, I've had really good reps. Uh, and heck, Reed, if you're listening right now, he's been one of them. Some people that believed, you know, um, and ambition. Like, I don't know where it comes from exactly, other than my family has always been entrepreneurs, and my dad, I never felt like he was ever successful at what he did, um, and I wanted to make sure I became successful for my own family. It was more a drive to get food on the table, and I have a hard time giving up. Not that I'm necessarily stubborn. I just, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it well. And right now, I feel like I'm limited to doing it well, and I can't quite get things done that I could do, for my, really, at the end of the day, my customer experience. So it's do as well as we can, control what you can control, and that's what I'm trying to keep in mind and be patient.
Right, right. No, and I mean, the crazy thing to think about is that you've kind of, despite this, and despite the periods of time that you've gone through, is that this has all been done in what, 13 years, barely, just about 13 years. So to go from kind of what you started at, just an idea, literally, I mean, you could say it's an idea on a napkin, with the logo and everything, but to now a 32,000 square foot
32.
location, and selling what you're selling. So no, that, I mean, it's the stories you like to see, I think, in this industry, and kind of the independent retail side of things, and seeing what you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, well, thank you. Now, people always ask me, like, are you doing this so you can franchise, so you can have more stores? Are you doing it for the money? Oh, furniture, you guys make tons of money. It's like, that's bogus. Like, you don't have a clue what a sole proprietor has to do, to survive, you know. And no, I'm doing it so my kids can have a future. I'm not doing it for a franchise to only make my life that much more complicated and harder to get around. I live 30 seconds away from my store for a reason, and that is so I can be with my family as much as I can, but also be quick to work, and not waste time. So,
Sure. I got to close on one
yep,
question. I saw, I mentioned the About Us page and getting to meet all your team. The About Us info's on there. Born in Portland, Maine, so born northeast of the country, and now in north central. Do you like the wilderness? Are you a wilderness kind of guy?
yeah, my passion is sports and hunting and fishing. Yes,
There you go. So
absolutely.
what brings someone from Maine, literally one corner of the country, over to Montana?
You need a new podcast for that, man. You think my story for my business is 30 years a while. What do you hear that one?
No, that maybe we'll save it for another day.
Maybe
No, that
another day. Simply put, my parents uprooted us in school and drove us out here without ever been here before. So here
wow,
we
that's
go.
crazy. No, we'll have to schedule another time, but
Yeah,
no.
definitely.
Alonzo, this has been awesome, and great to learn a little bit about Bobcat and kind of what you guys are doing, and easy to root for, man. What you guys are doing is awesome, and seeing the growth that you've had, and despite again, this past year has been crazy, but to face it and continue to grow during it is a testament to, I think, you and your team and what you got going on there.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Come anytime, man.
Absolutely. Hey, if I can get from Philly to Montana, I've never been. Now that I've spoken to two Montanans, maybe I can get out there.
We're having a barbecue every day this summer with the Traeger grills we just got.
Oh,
So
there you go. There you go. I'll have to
free
make
food.
a point. So no, this was awesome. Thank you.
All right, man. I appreciate your time.
All right, and a huge thank you again to Alonzo for taking time out of his day and sitting down with us and talking about it all. The whole background to how he came up with Bobcat, to how that business has grown. I mean, going from unreal to think about. But literally the back of a truck selling mattresses to a 32,000 square foot store that he now owns and operates, and moving into all kinds of different categories. Just great to follow, and those are the kinds of stories and people and businesses that we cheer for here and like to see succeed. So proud to have him as a member, and proud to get to talk to him, and like I said, appreciate his time. And as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we will catch you next time.